Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Nilesh. I'm the head of marketing at Customer Success Box. We welcome you all to our webinar on how Apptio defines customer success metrics. Now, before we get started, I would like to remind you all that we are recording this webinar, and you'll be receiving a link to the recording. You are welcome to send your questions throughout the webinar via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens, or you can just feel free to chime in the chat. We'll try and answer as many of them during the presentation, and we'll have a Q&A as well. There'll also be a 10-minute live walkthrough of our customer success platform right after this presentation. But let's cut to the chase. Now I'm pleased to introduce to you our speaker, Kevin Teets. Kevin started his career as a mechanical engineer doing thermodynamic analysis modeling of rocket components in orbit within a computer programming language that most people have never heard of. Needless to say, he didn't enjoy it. However, during that experience, Kevin always found himself asking the question, why is this important to the business? And he quickly realized that what he enjoyed doing most was translating hard technical problems to business value, because that is what resonated most with customers. So Kevin has anchored his entire 20+ year career around understanding how to translate hard technical concepts or technical architecture into driving business value for customers. He's spent the last 7.5 years helping sell, deliver, adopt, and renew SaaS-based products at Apptio. And as Vice President of Customer Success, Kevin has been hyper-focused at driving the organization to decrease deployment velocity, drive simpler ways for customers to realize value, and organize teams around renewal and upsell strategies across the customer base, which is why we are very excited to have Kevin for today's webinar as he answers the most common questions of SaaS leaders and customer success professionals who are attending this webinar trying to define customer success metrics. The webinar, as you all know, will be moderated by Puneet. In his previous avatar, Puneet was VP at a B2B SaaS company, Kayako, where he inherited 10,000+ live accounts and was tasked to plug the leaky bucket. 5 years later, that has translated into an obsession to fix the leak for every B2B SaaS business. And he started Customer Success Box, where he leads today as a founder and CEO. In over 16 years of professional experience, Puneet has held leadership positions at ThoughtWorks, IBM, Telelogic, and started his career as an engineer at Honeywell Aerospace. And now with that, I'll turn it over to you, Kevin and Puneet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nilesh. Kevin, all yours. Take it away. And so during this presentation, I think everybody, let's just enjoy it together. I know all of you cannot sort of jump in and speak, but we are constantly listening into our comments section. Both Nilesh and I will be watching that. And I'll keep jumping in with questions, picking them up from your comments and any questions that you'll throw there. And we'll keep, Kevin, with your permission, we'll keep interrupting you. And let's keep this interactive. And I know while we are sitting in all our comfort zones and comfort rooms and offices and homes all across the world, but let's just make it feel that we are in the same room, and we'll keep it as interactive as we can. Over to you, Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Puneet. You can see my screen, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yep,
yeah.
You're good.
So yeah, thank you for the great introduction, and just a little bit about kind of my journey with Apptio. You know, I've been here at Apptio for about 7 years, and have lived from a startup company in pre-IPO era to post-IPO era, where we went public in September of 2016. So we just crossed over IPO about 2 years ago, and has been quite an exciting journey. Seen a lot of growth. So with that, just wanted to tell you a little bit about who is Apptio and what we do. So we are a software, we're a SaaS company that is really purpose-built for a purpose-built platform for IT leaders, ultimately trying to help IT leaders change the conversation from being viewed by the business as a necessary support organization to a strategic enabler of the business. So really it's these IT leaders that are trying to show and prove that IT can be a competitive differentiator. But before you can do that, you actually have to have and show that you have a handle on your business. You want to be able to, squeeze your OpEx spend and shift that savings over to invest in investment funds, right? So we actually created our own market category. It's called Technology Business Management, or TBM. We are 100% dedicated and focused to this category, and it's really meant as a framework and a methodology to assist IT organizations changing that perception, right? Really trying to get the IT leaders, the CIOs of the world, a seat at the table to show that IT can actually be that competitive differentiator. We're also the founder and technology advisor to the TBM Council, which really is a nonprofit organization that is now about 6,000 or so IT leaders from across the globe that get together really on a quarterly basis. And part of their strategy is ultimately to help define standards and frameworks in terms of commonalities across IT. And as you can maybe understand, there's a lot of the same thing, if you will, that requires IT to be the same. So we want to be able to understand those costs in terms of your average, cost of compute or your average cost of storage, and how that relates to your applications or workloads in order to determine how do you, reduce spend so that you can shift that savings over to grow your investment funds, right? So within customer success, our strategy is fairly straightforward. We have really very focused in trying to increase the time to value to get a customer from post-subscription, post-signature, to value as fast as we can. So we want to really drive velocity in our organization and our motion in our products to get fast time to value. And we also want customers to be able to understand and adopt our products in their organization. And so how we do that is really we have several different activities or initiatives within these three pillars around professional services is how do we get customers onboarded and adopted quickly. Education services is really centered around how do we get the masses educated in our platform, in our framework of TBM. And the success programs are more of our add-on type programs that are dedicated to provide personal product mentoring, and you'll see a little bit more from that as we move forward. So before we get too far into it, just the topic of the conversation today is how do we, Apptio, look at customer success metrics? And before we get into that, just talking about holistically, what is, at least from a lens of customer success, what does it mean to be high growth? This isn't the full equation of high growth, but what we look at from customer success is you need to be able to have high renewal rates. And how do you do high renewal rates? You got to get customers to actually adopt and use the products that you sold them. And if you do that, then you're actually able to get customers that are referenceable, that will then help drive new business. And if they're also using your products, it'll drive further expansion into other product lines that we offer. And then furthermore, you want to be able to continuously improve your cost of goods sold business. Actually, it's your run business, to be able to do more with less over time. So you want to be able to increase velocity, maintain quality of your deployment times, and you want to be able to increase your staffing ratios, meaning, again, you want to do more with less, and you want to build strategies around how do you do that more effectively. So let's go back and look at how do we drive high renewal rates. And within customer success, it's all about adoption. And how do we break out adoption is through these four quadrants, or these four dimensions, if you will. And it starts with a customer journey. What we understood fairly early is that we needed to be able to codify and standardize on a standard playbook about what it takes a customer to value. And you'll see a little bit more of that in a few slides. But the next thing is you need customers to be able to adopt your products, and they need the skill versus will, right? The willingness of actually taking the product that you have and integrating it into your day in and day out operations, your monthly cadence. You need to integrate a process, and that's the willingness to actually do it, the change management, if you will. The customer skill, you really have to have people that, we have to have customers that understand how to configure and evangelize products into their organization. So we've created a ton of training and education in various forms to try to get our customers to understand how to do that the most efficient way possible. And then finally, how are we doing? It's more about a category of customer satisfaction, which is really Net Promoter Score, or NPS. We take the feedback from NPS, and we look at all of it in a way to continuously improve our motion, every month. So let's talk. Let's drill into a little bit of the customer experience map. And
so Kevin, I think the way you're putting the way you've defined the quadrant in terms of what does it take to take the customer from subscription start to product usage, and in terms of defining it in skill, will, and journey. I think I've spoken to hundreds of customer success leaders directly myself, and what I constantly see is the maximum number of focus is, especially for the younger customer success organizations still to go through the majority. The first step is everybody thinks that it's all about skill, and we've seen constantly people training, and sometimes I think overtraining as well, but only emphasizing on the skill part. And then eventually they figure out, no, skill alone will not work it, but we'll have to, phase it out. And that's when they get to the journey part. Frankly, this is the first time I'm ever seeing anybody talking about the customer will. Tell us a little bit more about that. What do you mean by customer will? How do you know whether it's there or not, and how do you bring that out?
Well, I mean, this is another way of saying, like, when you integrate something into your organization, it's about people, process, technology, and information, right? So it's another way to say the same thing. But the will, technology is technology. It really isn't that hard to create something in technology. But after it's created, what do you do with it? How do you get organizations to embrace? It's all change, and everybody inherently is afraid of change, or they don't want to change because it causes more work, and they have to do different things, and everybody's in their own mode. And so you really have to do creative things in trying to get customers to, in a way to really embrace change, and it's for the betterment of the business and what's in it for me type of thing. And you got to, like, every persona that we interact with, we try to explain to them the benefits of what this could be to them in their job, to them in their careers, to them in their business operations. And that's really, like, you have to really motivate and drive that kind of energy into customers, so that they're going to actually understand it and evangelize it into their operations. So this will is really like the change. It's a big broad topic, but it's change management, right?
Wow. No, I'm so glad you brought that up. I think everybody knows that change management at an org level is the most difficult problem to solve. And I think bringing that sort of flavor in customer success, I think itself is a completely innovative, very creative. Let's keep going. Sorry if I interrupted you, but I think I'm already loving this.
Yeah, no, it's great. So yeah, let me talk a little bit about this journey map, and we call it the customer experience map. So several years ago, you can see in the upper left, we got 30 or 40 people in a room for several days, and we said, hey, in the eyes of the customer, what are the sets of activities that are going to make the best possible experience with the customer? What's going to make them feel at the end of the day like, man, these guys are just killers, and we have the best customer experience, and this product is great, and now we know how to evangelize it in our organization. We know exactly what the value points are, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a lot of work. This isn't done easily, but you can see we wrote a bunch of sticky notes on the whiteboard. We categorized everything. We shifted. We summarized, and it advances into this customer experience map. And we've had it ever since. this is our standard playbook. It's core IP for us, and it's what we communicate to customers in terms of we have a standard methodology, we have a standard playbook, we know what it takes to get customers to value, and this is our operation, right? So it's really done a good job of building credibility to organizations that ask us, well, how are you going to do that, right? And so this is a key cornerstone in making that a successful motion.
I think let me decode that a little bit. I think there was a lot which was packed into it. So you to start with, you mentioned Kevin that it was about 30 or 40 of you in a room for how long, you said? It
was like a 3-day workshop.
Oh wow. Yeah. And the result was that sticky board, which then eventually translated into this methodology using which you are onboarding, enabling on all fronts, Scaleville and the journey for all your customers. Brilliant. Yep. Let me go a step back here. So what really motivated those 30 and 40 of you, of your colleagues and yourself as a team to come together and do this? What was the trigger? And how was it before, this and after this?
Yeah, I mean, before this, I mean, the call to action has always been increased velocity. And how do you do that? And the first step in increasing velocity is you have to build it based on standards. Prior to this, like, we didn't have a standard application. We didn't have a standard deployment methodology. It was more like, go in to customer deployments and ask the customers, what do they want to do? And they say, well, what do you have? And then we had to go through a custom consulting exercise. And it was just, it's always been a constant continuous improvement initiative within our organization that we have to shrink our deployment times because we need to increase our velocity on value, right? And so in order to do that, this was the first step in order to make that happen. So before this, we had significant deployments, right, that took a very long time and it was very, very complex. And after this, we decreased our deployment times, material impacts, because we were now able to drive efficiencies in our organization. It was standard playbook. Somebody on the West Coast could deliver a same type of thing on the East Coast because we have this framework to operate under.
Wow, that's fantastic. So a consistent experience, no matter where you buy it from, who is delivering the workshop,
Yep.
or whether workshop or the entire onboarding, but you get the premium Apptio experience.
That's right.
Well, excellent. Thank you for sharing.
So moving on, I know there's a little bit of an eyeful, but let me just walk through it. We have another metric within customer success that we call adoption health, or A360, right? And this A360, we had a need that we needed to have a leading indicator of how customers are adopting our products, because that's an indicator of actual renewal. Because if a customer is actually using our products, we feel more comfortable that they're getting value, i.e. we're gonna get a successful renewal. So at the time, we didn't have really good telemetry data in terms of how our customers were using our software. So we created this survey-based approach that we go in and answer these 7 types of questions, and within each of these questions, it rates a value based on that. And it starts with sponsor engagement. Like, do we have an executive sponsor engaged? How much are they engaged? Do we interact with them regularly? Then it goes to a roadmap. Do we know what they want to get out of Apptio? Do we have a solid roadmap? Are we executing against it? Does the customer bought into the journey? What are the timelines associated with it, et cetera? How are they using our product? What reports are valuable? What is invaluable? What does it look like? How many people are using our product? The value relative to the ACV, do they feel like they're getting a lot of value from our product, and does it quantify based on what we're charging them? Back to the TBM admin skills. Do they have the skills in-house to be self-sufficient, or are they reliant on us to continue to drive through our, we have different programs that help with those moving forward. Data, are they actually taking what we built them And are they ingesting data so that the results in Apptio are accurate? Not accurate, are they timely, right? So it's real time, if you will. So it's freshness, if you will. And then are the capabilities operationalized is we offer a set of capabilities within our platform. Have they taken those capabilities and integrated it into their organization? Are they using it in a regular process? So you can see this function here, how we calculate this A360 is really based on taking the answers in those 7 dimensions, applying a weighting mechanism to each one of those, and spitting out one number, coming out with one health score per customer, and trying to, based on that, determine where do they sit from an adoption health. Are they red? Are they red? Are they below 60? Are they in the middle? Are they yellow between 60 and 79? Or are they green and healthy and they're doing great? So again, this kind of is the foundation for something like what you would see here. We have taken that algorithm and pushed it into our source of record, and now we have this scorecard view across all of our base, and we can slice this and dice this in terms of looking at it by portfolio. We can look at it by segment. We can look at it by customer. We can look at it by CSM. We can do anything we want to it, and we can now score and see red, yellow, greens across our base. And what that helps us with is ultimately we can come in, and this is a subset of an accounts, for example, green on the left, yellow in the middle, red on the right, and you can see it gets more yellow and red as you go from left to right. What this allows us to do is create initiatives or activities focused based on, I guess it's not very clear, but each one of these verticals here represents one of those dimensions. So it allows us to focus our effort. Say this one that I'm pointing out is a roadmap. If we're, this basically says that if that was a roadmap vertical, that what we need to do is actually drive more effort on our roadmap strategy in that subset of customers. So it gets us really hyper-focused on how to drive these scores up. If we drive scores up, again, leading indicator of adoption and then renewal, right?
This is wow. This is like really, really detailed. On the 7 key points, and if you don't mind just going a couple of, one more slide back. So I'm curious. So one thing, that every time we help customers configure the right health score, the truth is a lot of time customers just go like all out. We expect our customer to be in good health if they're doing this and this and this and this and this and this and this, like it's a never ending thing. And then we push like, okay, let's see who all meet that criteria. And the results obviously are very disappointing because this is the first time you run that analytics, and then you have such a high expectation in your head that your customers are doing all of that. So was the score, like you're saying, below 60 and 79 and 80 and above, was this the standard from day one, or in reality, the standard maybe, below 40 or below 30 was red, and maybe, anything above 60 was possibly green to start with, and you'd sort of continue to push that envelope and the bar up. And
I mean, we had to learn a lot from this. I mean, we didn't start with these 7 dimensions. We had more, right? And like you always have to try to simplify. And how did we determine the thresholds? And we really created the algorithm. We had all these things, and we've done improvements since. But when it spits out the number, when you're first getting started, you really have to take a look at the entire organization, and you have to go customer by customer and say, does that make sense? Is that customer really red, or are they yellow, or are they green? And based on all of this analysis, as we stood this thing up, we had to just make these minor improvements and adjustments to the model and adjustments to the algorithm until 80–90% of it made sense, right? And then, we kind of went forward for a couple of years. We've made improvements. We moved from 9 dimensions to 7 dimensions. We've made just incremental improvements throughout the years, right? And now it's actually quite effective for us to be able to see the customer health. It's a leading indicator, and it really does help drive a lot of our initiatives in the organization.
Wow. Wow. No, this is great. You know, Nisar has a question for you, and he wants to know, so what keeps you, motivated to continue to improve, further on your customer success program? I think Nisar, in a way, is also complimenting you that it looks perfect.
Well, I mean, boy, Apptio has a culture of just continuous improvement, and we're not the easiest organization, but if you have this mindset that you're always wanting to improve, because there's always things that you can improve upon. It's just part of our DNA, and by no means are we perfect. And we have quarterly metrics, and we look to say, hey, how do we move more reds to the yellows, and how do we move more yellows to the greens, and how do we maintain the greens? And like this is just ongoing thing about it's all about, think about that first slide I showed you on the metrics. It's all about driving, continuing to drive high growth. And for a publicly traded company and a software valuation, you always have a lot of pressure to make sure that your margins are top notch. And what is our contribution as customer success? What can we do to really influence that bottom line?
I think that's a very straightforward, sort of a way to look at it, and directly aligns with the value that you're delivering to your shareholders, to business, as well as, of course, to your customers. I think
that's right.
This is great. And
hey, Kevin. We have one more question from Aaron. Aaron asks, how do you quantify more qualitative aspects, such as a roadmap?
Yeah, so we have, within each one of these dimensions, right, we have a set of values that we have people answer. This is the survey-based approach, right? Again, we have telemetry data. We weight the telemetry a lot more than we used to because we didn't have it, but now we do. But roadmap, for example, we have 5 or so values within roadmap. Do we have a roadmap created, for example? That's the lowest value. Do we have a roadmap that the customer agrees to? Do we have a roadmap that the customer agrees to and the sponsor has signed off on it, right? And so that's another value. So each one of these things is a progression of value, if you will, or a progression of a value within the algorithm that increases the A360 more and more and more. And so hopefully that answers your question, but it is subjective in a way, but it's like a stepping stone of how we tweak the algorithm in terms of the more that we're engaged with the customer in driving a roadmap, the more points we get in that A360 score.
It answers it well, I guess. There's a follow-up question on this from Jamie. Is this all tracked within an external tool or platform like Gainsight, or are you tracking this internally in developed tools dashboards?
Yeah, no, this is a Gainsight dashboard here that I showed you guys. We have Gainsight in-house, and we've been using them for years. All
right, Kevin, I guess you can now continue on.
But I'm sorry, I have a question here. So Kevin, while you were building that, that A360, and you said that now you're using a lot more telemetry. So I think that's one learning that you had along the way, or versus you added. What was the biggest surprise that you thought will impact the customer success or A360 that you had to later take out?
Honestly, I can't recall what it was, but it was, after we're talking 4 years ago now, so I can't really remember what we took out. But I can say the telemetry adds to the usage, right? So before, it was really like, our CSMs would kind of talk to the customer, hey, what are you using? How are you using it, right? And now we actually have a data-driven conversation because we can go into our usage dashboards and see how many times they hit the dashboard or how many times they hit the specific report, what personas hit it, what users hit it, how many times they accessed it a month. I mean, just a wealth of data that we have now that provides information. The point is, though, the big point that I wanted to highlight, we didn't wait for that telemetry. We got started on this health score immediately because it was more important that we got this leading indicator out so we could have a better understanding of our forecast renewal rates, right? We just had to have something. So the point of this exercise was get started now. It doesn't matter. You will evolve and improve over time, but it was a very, very effective way for us to get started.
No, I think, yeah, great point. You know, just like any major initiative, customer success is also a journey. It's not a turn on, turn off sort of a switch.
It's always about continuous improvement, I think, you know?
Yes. Well said. Well said. Please keep going forward.
Okay, so we went through this. So let me talk a little bit about our success programs. What we have is something called Premier Success. It's an add-on program. This add-on program is really catered towards getting customers very specific product mentoring, as well as TBM evangelization, overarching architecture and product health, and making sure that the system is up and running and operational. And it's really working hand in hand with the customer's TBM administrators and making sure that they are driving themselves towards self-sufficiency. And what we have found here is that basically customers, and this is probably, you know, you should hope that this is the right result, but we have found that customers who actually have this add-on service actually have higher A360 scores, right? So yay, I think it's a good indicator that we're doing our jobs. We're getting customers to understand how to operate our product. They're actually getting the tools necessary to evangelize the product within their organization. They are now kind of advisors, if you will, of Apptio and TBM within their organization. Right, and one more thing on this is what we also did with these Premier programs is this is a subscription program, meaning that this is also adds to our bottom line because it's like selling a software product, right? So this adds to our overall revenue number as we move forward, and the subscription business is king.
Yes, I can't agree more, and we've seen more similar, and it sounds to me that this is a paid program, like you mentioned, as a subscription program, but rather than selling it as a one-time or an onboarding fee, you're recommending making it available as a subscription program, which sort of adds to the lifetime value and then feeds back into the organization. This is great. But
it does. It's been hugely successful in our organization.
Fantastic. But let's say, what about the customers who choose not to go for the Premier program? Then how do you sort of ensure that they also end up being in better A360 score? And by the way, do you still measure them on the same A360 metric, or is there a different metric for them?
Yeah, no, great question. So A360 is standard. A360 is standard across our entire base. So we don't rate a customer different because of the services they have. It's just we're all measured the same, or they are all measured the same. With every customer, we provide a standard service, and that standard service provides, you know, a CSM, for example, an assigned CSM, and that CSM is going to have, you know, some product depth, is going to be able to facilitate, you know, sessions with the customer on an ad hoc basis, is able to, you know, help any kind of, you know, escalation issues or everything. But the key here, so we do help customers, and we have a very defined methodology about a standard success program that is actually, there's a lot of value there that we include with that subscription. What the difference is really, it's the product expertise, and it's the amount of effort, if you will, the time, right? So our standard success, if you will, has higher ratios, if you will, where our Premier, there's a lot more dedicated time from our product experts that is working hand in hand with customers.
Great, thank you. I think that explains.
Great. So another thing that we have, so we have gone through a big journey in terms of trying, what does it take to get our customers to understand our products and understand TBM as it relates to it. And this has been a journey of creating online and community forums. And so over the years, with every customer we have, they get immediate access to our community platform, right? And with that, there's 2,700 members. You can pose questions, you can get conversations started, you can create your own blogs. We create a lot of videos. A lot of videos are included, but then what we have is another add-on service that is online. It's about computer-based training. It's called this All Access Education Pass, and it's basically all of there's some free content that everybody goes to, but then there's the paid content that gives you access to deeper technical configuration, TBM domain knowledge, technology business management domain knowledge. And then what we have is we built these accreditation certifications, if you will. So on the left, bottom left here, we have 889 recognized TBMAs that have gone through this computer-based training, a coursework, if you will, followed by an exam that then you get a certification. And it's basically making the skill sets within people in our industry more marketable. And then from there, we have an advanced certification that we've created called this Elite TBMA, and you can see that we've been progressing pretty good on that. The thing here is that, again, this program that we've created around the certifications and these RTBMAs, we have shown that customers who have RTBMAs and these certifications actually have higher A360 scores. So we're really trying to drive more of these this online training, because that ultimately helps with many different things, including our staffing ratios, including getting customers understanding our product set, including the certification that makes these people more marketable. We have people that are going between different customers because they have these skill sets now. So it's really been a great experience for us as a company to see and to see how it interacts with other people as well.
Great. I think this is a great sign of now you sort of are able to gather all the knowledge and now distribute in a way where it can be scaled.
Yep. Yeah, it's been a journey though. Like we didn't start this like out of the gates. We didn't create all the content and then turn on a switch. This has been a gradual build. Like we keep adding content to the program. We keep adding curriculums. We keep adding videos. And that's what I would say, like, you just got to this is another thing, you just got to get started. You build the program and it just gets better and better over time.
So, one thing that I've always seen lots of times when I think everybody knows where we want to get to, but it's the journey that sort of, which everybody is sort of unsure of. So how many minimum videos, how many minimum, blogs do I need before I can package them up and say, here is a all fancy name, All Access Education Pass. I like the name, by the way. I'm like, I can already see from the name that I'm going to get a lot of value.
Yeah, I think that's very subjective. You got to make depending on how complex your product is, depending on, we started doing all of these videos that were, an hour or 2 or 3 hours in length. And now we're moving towards very short snippets, right? And we're saying, hey, let's just learn about this one feature or function. And maybe that's a 10-minute, Spark video or something, right? And so like we've sort of shifted our thinking, but it's still the same. So how do you get started? I think you just kind of determine how complex your product is. I would just say, don't wait too long, get it out and keep evolving, right? Like you do have to have a set of foundational content to get moving. And I guess, if I could think about it, we did start with community first. Like we got this community platform started and moving, and to get all of our customers in and collaborating together. And then we evolved by starting to create this, access pass, and that's the very, the cost pays for itself. I mean, it's very inexpensive, if you will.
Noted. No, I think that a tip is great. Doing a 10-minute video is going to be a lot more quicker than doing an hour long. So good tip. Good tip.
Yeah, good. All right, well, moving on. Let's talk about NPS, or customer loyalty. Really, the takeaway here is that when we started NPS, you can see that in the bottom left, there's a lot of volatility in this curve. And really what it meant to us is we needed to react to every customer that is giving us feedback, both positive and negative. And we would react and actually try to improve our product. We would try to improve our motion. We would really take the feedback seriously and create themes based on what we were learning across all of our customer feedback and drive that into our motion, whether it's in our product motion or our delivery motion, or it's in our adoption motion, whatever that would be. And as you can see, that volatility goes away. We start smoothing out that line, and now it's just kind of a gradual uptick, which, that's a good sign.
Oh, this is, I think, you've clearly got a handle on everything, and that sort of graph proves that. But, since you're already using NPS and A360, and so A360, like you mentioned, is clearly a leading indicator of value delivered, or however you want to call it, versus NPS, which is, I think it's a great metric, but we all understand that it's a lagging indicator. But what will be interesting to see is how much is the lag. So
yeah.
if you start to see an A360 go up, NPS like immediately improves, or is there a larger lag?
Yeah, I mean, it's not immediate for sure. We measure these both on a regular basis, but it's like this NPS customer loyalty is really customers who are really mad at you or really happy with you, right? And that's what you end up seeing in the feedback, and you respond accordingly to it and try to improve upon it. And those improvements get added to those motion, and the motion comes out in, improvements of whether it's the A360 strategies, like how do you improve the reds? Some of those actually happen because of the feedback that happens. So now if we go back and look at the lag, is it 1 month? Is it 3 months? Like, when do you actually see a reaction to it? It might be 3 or 6 months now that I think about it, right?
Gotcha. No, that's because it's very, very useful to sort of know this time frame that you think, or that you've sort of experienced, in terms of like, because a lot of times as customer success managers, as customer success leaders, we can sign up for, okay, we will deliver an NPS improvement while there might be actually a lag. And then we sort of keep wondering what's happening.
Yeah.
Cool. Great insight.
So just to kind of recap, again, how we really look at all of this in terms of adoption in the bottom here. Well, let's just take it. The customer journey really translates to our customer experience map. The customer will, which we talked about, the willingness of a customer to integrate into and evangelize the change management, is really that adoption health score. Like, how do we drive adoption scenarios into the organization? The customer skill is all about those, both the Apptio University strategies we have, and the premier programs that we've added to our organization. And then how are we doing? It's more customer satisfaction is the NPS. So kind of retranslated down here in terms of what we view as adoption. In the end, so that was all about like, how do we drive adoption, and how does that add to high renewal rates, and that then translates to new logo growth as well. But these next two slides is really about what are our strategies to reduce our cost of goods sold or maintain, right? So ultimately, we want to increase velocity while maintaining quality. We want to decrease complexity both in our motion and our products. And we also really want to drive ongoing customer commitment and engagement. We want to be able to deploy and maintain incremental value to keep the customer energized, right? And so we have kind created a motion by which we're literally trying to do that. We're building on incremental value. Every time we meet with the customer, we want to come back with a new capability or a new piece of information or a new insight, and that keeps the energy alive. If you don't do that, you're going to see a downtick in the momentum of customer engagement and commitment, and that's a real risk. And so you got to watch out for that. Lastly, it's all about increasing staffing ratios. Over the years we have done a pretty good job. Every year we're kind of figuring out what can we do to do more with our people. We told you part of our DNA is this continuous improvement. We have developed standard playbooks for a lot of different things that we have in our organization, not just deployment, but also post-deployment, i.e. the adoption. We have adoption playbooks. Once we're done with that initial deployment, then we hand it over to a CSM. The CSM will take a very standard playbook and operate under that and try to get that customer to use the reports on a regular basis. Driving automation has been a huge strategy of ours, because if you drive more automation, you're increasing efficiencies. You can give more to the people who actually had those things automated. And then we already talked about improving deployment velocity. If you improve deployment velocity, you're getting a customer to green faster. Therefore, it's not going to be as hard for people to kind of get them to the value equation, over time. So all of these things are really helping to drive staffing ratios, and it's it's continuous improvement. So in summary, just kind of wanted to highlight this equation again and what we view in SaaS high growth, but that's really the sum of the presentation today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I've sort of seen lots of presentations and then stuff around the metric for customer success. But I think today what we saw, and the key takeaway, at least for me, was how do we build one? What are the ingredients? What's the recipe to sort of build a metric that will work for me? And I think this was really, really insightful. So any questions? And I see there's one coming in. So is there a reason why you only seem to use customer success metric and no real company success metrics such as an ARR or churn? That's an interesting question.
Well, the company uses ARR and churn, but we haven't viewed that as a key driver in how to push the needle, to move the needle, right? There's customer acquisition costs, there's ARR, there's all of these things, but in the end, it's all about, for customer success, it's all about getting customers to adopt our products, right? And that leads to healthy renewals. So hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and in fact, there was a similar question from Sonal earlier. Sorry, Sonal, I missed that one. If there are upsell and resell responsibilities directly associated with your team?
No, we partner very closely with our account management group, who is actually part of the sales organization, and they hold that accountability.
Cool, got it. So I hope that answers your question. So I'm not seeing any more questions, but you've got another, let's say, a minute to punch in any questions you have. So to end this session, what we typically do is we also present, or rather give you a sneak peek into what we do. As you know, that we are Customer Success Box. We are a B2B SaaS customer success platform ourselves. And interestingly, today, I think what I'm going to show you in about next 5-10 minutes is very similar to the ingredients like what Kevin was talking about. And I think you will see the synergies or the alignment exactly to the way a 360 is created. And I'm gonna, so while I make that switch, feel free to ask any questions, and I or Nilesh will be happy to pick those up. Nilesh, I think, is there one in Q&A section? I'm not looking at it. No, there's not. Okay.
Yeah, there's a question in the Q&A box. This is, I believe, Pete. He's asking, Kevin, will you share the questions underpinning each of your 7 dimensions with the group after the presentation?
Sorry, I didn't understand. You wanted the presentation?
No, they're regarding the 7 dimensions. What are the questions underlying each of the 7 dimensions?
What are the different questions? I'll need to look, but I can work through you guys if I can make sure. I got to discuss with corporate communications.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. We really appreciate, I think, all the information that you've already shared, and whatever sort of it's comfortable, we can understand. They'll be very, very specific to the organization and the product as well. Great. So with that, I think we don't have any more questions. I'm going to go ahead and start to share my screen now, so that we can give you a quick glimpse into customer success box itself. Just keep in mind, this is not a full demonstration of the platform, but very specifically, I think I'm going to take the lead from what Kevin was talking about today, and talk about not A360, but something very, very similar. I think you'll be able to see where we meet. So this is the portfolio dashboard. I've signed into customer success box as Joan, and this is the dashboard that I'm seeing as a success manager, my portfolio dashboard. But what I wanted to really show you is the all accounts view, and you can bring in all the data points. This is my portfolio. I can just switch to Joan's portfolio, and I'm looking at all the accounts which are with me. And I'm going to go ahead and randomly open maybe a few accounts here. And this is where the fun stuff happens. Now, if you recall the Health 360 with those 7 segments, now what we have done is we believe that there are 4 key pillars to an account health, and we call it Health 360. And I'm going to take the next 5 minutes, 7 minutes to talk about Health 360 and how we do it. As you can see, those 4 pillars are product adoption, financial health, service quality health, relationship, and these are the structured pieces. And if at all there is something which is unstructured that you want to capture, as such as a risk, for example, and let me start with this. Let's say the champion left. Let's say there was a champion within the organization who's championing your product, and the champion left, and this, as a success manager, you want to say, oh, this is very important, and it is medium risk for us because we need to quickly identify a champion which is no more available. And you can have a respective confidence building as well. For example, this could be something like referral offered, for example. So let's say there was a referral offered, and this could be a confidence building score as well, and you can capture those. Now, like you can see, this could be very unstructured data, easy to get lost, never bubbles up, and can get hidden behind some of these scores, and risk sort of takes care of that piece. But now let's go ahead and look at some of the product adoption pieces as to what goes into product adoption. So what goes into product adoption scoring, and I'm going to take you to the configuration screen here of all the health scores. So here you're looking at the configuration screen. So we've got health, which is defined. Let's go to the default section here. So we've got not 1 score, but 3 configurations: product adoption, relationship, service, and financial. So under product adoption, for an account to be in good health, these are all the metrics, underlying metrics, which can influence whether the account has good health or not. So to start with, it's as simple as license utilization. What's the frequency of use? Total active days, for example, was the account active for at least, let's say, 5 days in the last 7 days. And it's always the rolling last 7 days. So you can set it up and every day it gets refreshed. So we are always looking at this window to see whether this criteria is met or not. It could be last login should be less than, at any point in time, less than 5 days ago. Total number of active users, for example, should be always greater than 4 in the last 3 days continuously. Time spent in the system should be, let's say, at least 500 minutes collectively across all users in the last 30 days or whatever number that makes sense. And then we get into even more specific things. And this is where you would typically model your product and start to push the actual usage data, the telemetry data that I think Kevin was referring to, exactly what modules are being used, and within those modules, which features are being used. So for the purpose of this demonstration, it is mimicking a marketing tool. So for example, content created can be an interesting metric. So for a marketing tool to be delivering value, in this case, let's say at least 10 new pieces of content should be created every 14 days. But where it becomes interesting is 10 the right threshold? And this is where our advanced mode comes in, and where you're not hard coding this number, but you actually go ahead and say, hey, 5% of the content, 5% of, let's say, total active users or total licenses purchased, or any other attribute that you think this should be a percentage of, should be the minimum number of content which should be generated every 14 days. And because this variable is actually a variable which is different for different account, you are pretty much configuring health, or in this case specifically the product adoption health, at an account level. So it does not get more detailed than this, where you're setting thresholds at an account level and not generic thresholds. So this is all that can go in directly to product adoption health, and you can bring in any custom attributes as well to influence any of the health. So that's product adoption health. And now let's quickly look at, in a very similar fashion, what goes into financial health. So what goes into financial health is all the subscription data, all the invoice data. So for example, do I have an invoice which is overdue, which is where the billing is in the next 90 days, but the invoice is overdue, or the MRR is greater than so and so. Things like those can go into right here. Let's say an overdue status can be brought in. What will go into services, and this is where your standard support services come in, the technical support. How many tickets were raised? How many tickets were critical? How many are open? How many were closed over a period of time? So for instance, total open tickets. So total open tickets should be less than 5, and total tickets should be not equal to 0 either, because too much silence means you're not hearing anything. And maybe over the last 90 days, we want at least some activity for an account to be good health. But at any point in time, we should not have more than 5 open tickets from the last 14-day window, for instance. So things like those can influence service health. Now, relationship is at times can be very challenging, but because Customer Success Box is an actionable platform, that means you are simply not looking at the data, but you can actually act on the data as well. So of course, you can see all the data, where they are in the product adoption journey, which can be broken down into different milestones. You can even look at individual user data, like you can even dive into a single user and see what all activity they've been using, how much time they've spent, when was the last touch point. In this case, they've not seen the touch point. But coming back to the actionability is where the system allows you to act on this. That means you can write emails, write notes. Sorry, this is internal, but you can send emails to the end customer. create tasks, even make phone calls right within the system without leaving the browser window. You can dial up to 130 countries and the calls get recorded if you so wish to. And the entire log and all the activity is maintained right within the system and nothing is ever lost. So the entire context is maintained and all the relationship is maintained. You can log, for example, let's say you do a QBR. So you can log that QBR completed. And now because all of this data is stays right within the system, we use all of this to define relationship health, which talks about touch points. So for example, last touch point should always be, last touch point should always be less than 30 days ago. Otherwise, the account cannot be in good health. Things like those will go into and impact your relationship health directly. So with that, I think I'm gonna sort of go back to the health, and this is what it goes into: product adoption, financial health, service health, and relationship health, and where you're bringing in data from multiple third-party systems and also generating data from within the customer success box to influence all of that. So hopefully that was helpful. And Kevin, I think you'll sort of see a mini A360, if I can call it that, but extremely configurable is what we are trying to create within Customer Success Box.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Very, very, very similar to what we've actually created in-house. So a lot of similarities here. Looks great.
Now, good to get a validation. That you given what the journey that you've taken in the last 7 years, and getting that validation here is great. Good. So thank you so much. I think with that, unless there are any more questions, Nilesh, I have not been watching. No more questions? Okay, Nilesh is saying no more questions. So thank you so much, everyone. Feel free to sign up for a demonstration on Customer Success Box if you'd like to know more. But Kevin, I think thanks a lot. We all loved your insights that you've shared today, and looking forward to hearing back again. And sometimes I think we should invite you one more time to do more insights into all the journeys that you've gone through. Yeah, thanks for having me, Puneet, Nilesh. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Take care. Signing off. Cheers.